Know thyself. If you've been following me along for any period of time, you've probably heard me say that phrase before, alongside also the other phrase, as above, so below, as within, so without. And that's because those two principles are kind of the North Stars that guide my life and creating a life that I love to live. And so today, I really want to be talking about know thyself. And despite what you might believe or have been told, knowing yourself is not arrogant, it is not selfish, and it is not vain. It is the beginning of your freedom, and it is one of the most important things you will ever do. So where does the phrase know thyself come from? Because we see it across traditions all throughout history, and it was definitely carved into the walls of the Temple of Delphi, and it was definitely popularized by Socrates. But you also see it in the teachings of the Buddha, you see it in the Tao, the Gita, and even what we call the modern day Bible scriptures. You see this constant invitation into awareness, transformation, and inner renewal. But for many people, especially if you grew up in religious situations, especially if you grew up in environments that taught you to abandon, deeply knowing yourself can feel uncomfortable. It can almost even feel like a sin. Because a lot of us were taught that wanting things is selfish, loving yourself is prideful, self-discovery is rebellion, and sacrifice somehow became confused with self-abandonment. But love does not abandon. Love does not require you to self-abandon to be loved. And when you're taught to deny yourself so much, eventually you don't even know who you are anymore. Because we're told, especially if you grew up in really twisted theology and Christianity, deny yourself. You got to pick up your cross. You got to deny yourself every day. Learn to be content in all circumstances. And they twist what these scriptures were actually meant to doing, because these scriptures were meant to bring life. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. You're meant to actually apply these and actually live a life that is full and beautiful and full of joy, not just look at them and suffer because of them. And listen, if you enjoy self-rejection, if you enjoy guilt and shame and hating yourself and just living in all that, then this video is probably not for you, because this video is about self-love. I know I'm not for everybody, and I know you're not for everybody. And my videos are here so that way you can take the pieces that resonate with you, apply them to your life, and continue on hopefully creating a life that you want to live. Because I don't know anybody that genuinely, unless they're deep in the religious psychosis, that enjoys suffering. Okay? The Bible actually says it's the sinner who suffers, but those who are righteous have joy. That's a gift given from God. And I have joy now because I'm in alignment with my purpose in creating a life that I want to live. And I've learned how to apply these spiritual texts and the esoteric teachings to live my life. Because whether you like it or not, there are laws that govern our world. And if you're not the one using them to create your life that you want to live, they're being used against you. So that way you have to create somebody else's version of their dream in creating a life that they want to live. Because at the end of the day, you have free will. You were given free will. That's polarity, okay? Free will to create, because that's how consciousness creates. And you get to choose and decide whether you will be your greatest companion and champion, or you will be your greatest enemy. And one of my favorite quotes that I just resonate with so deeply, and God said to love my enemy, and I obeyed and loved myself. Because loving yourself, especially at the beginning, is one of the hardest things that you can probably ever do. And it feels so uncomfortable because it goes against a lot of the programming that you have that you've just been running on unconsciously on autopilot. But once you break past that barrier, it is one of the most satisfying things to wake up and not actually look in the mirror and be like, oh, I hate you. Oh, you're ugly. Oh, your hair looks so stupid today. Really? You think? No. Who likes doing that? Who likes feeling shame and hate for themselves? Nobody. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to feel like an enemy in their own body, to feel like a prisoner in their own mind. Nobody wants to be there. And that is why you need to know thyself, because we need to learn to love ourselves. And the sad thing is, people are often more kinder to strangers than they are to themselves. But last I checked, especially if you read your Bible, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. You're supposed to be loving yourself, and from that outflow of abundance, loving everyone else around you. But because of programming, because of scarcity mindset, we are taught to give and give and give and overgive and over self-abandon, but we have not been properly taught how to receive. Especially if you grew up in the middle to lower class. Okay, I don't know about you, but I was taught, do not take anything from anybody. Okay, we don't accept handouts. We work for our shit, and we work hard for our shit. That was the beliefs programmed into me. But hustle culture doesn't work, and the Bible actually also talks about that. But we'll get back to that later. The first stage is self-awareness. That is why I talk about meditation. Meditation is not just for the health benefits of learning to regulate the nervous system, because you can actually also regulate your nervous system through activities of joy. But if your nervous system is overstimulated, you gotta get still. Be still and know that I am God. Okay, to the mind that is still, the universe surrenders. So you do. And the Buddha talks about that as emptying the mind, learning to detach from your thoughts, learning to detach from your emotions, because you are not what you feel and you are not what you think. Those are just indicators of what's going on inside of you and what's going on up here. So we need to learn to detach from our thoughts. And when a thought comes into our mind, we don't want to just identify with it. We want to say, whoa, where did this thought come from? Okay, is this my thought? Or is it just my programming's thought? Do I want to agree with that? Do I want to claim that? Or would I rather take it captive by Christ and say, no? And so I actually started doing that a long time ago. Anytime I get negative thoughts, because I was a super negative person, I had to learn to say, no, I'm not listening to you. And I would have to reframe it into a positive notion, learning to actually command your chariot, your mind and body. And you need to learn to become aware of what's going on inside this beautiful brain of yours. Because if you don't know what you believe, if you don't know what's going on in here, how are you supposed to change it? Or are you going to just keep living on autopilot? But when you are unconscious and you aren't practicing meditation, like wall gazing or staring at a candle to get into the present moment, to start bringing your energy to the present now, because your subconscious only creates with I am statements, I am that I am, present moment, being itself, the eternal I am, life, God in you, Christ in you, your hope of glory, okay? Different terminologies, symbolism. It only creates in the present moment. And so you really do, you have to learn. And if you're unconscious, you're identifying with your ego, and your ego identifies with the past or with the future. And it keeps you going on those thoughts. And so part of meditating is learning to kind of peer back the label and be like, hey, what's going on in there? And just to wait. Wait for a little thought. And when the thought comes up, you snatch it. Okay, and you don't let it take you on a train ride into la land of the past or future, because that means then you're unconscious again. So part of becoming aware is asking and putting your beliefs on trial and asking, is this true? Is this aligned with love or expansion? Or is this just what I've been told is true? Because a lot of times what we've been told is the truth is not actually the truth. It's just somebody's variation of a lie that's been masked as truth, okay? It might have some truth in it. It might have little sprinkles of truth, but it's probably not the eternal truth that's been told to every single nation and that's been woven throughout traditions across cultures. So we want to ask ourselves, why do we believe what we believe? Why do you fear what you fear? What wounds are you still running and operating from in your life underneath the surface? When somebody makes a comment about you and you react, and then you realize when you start becoming aware, oh, I act like that unconsciously because at 12 years old, my mom yelled at me like that, or this happened. And you start realizing the things that just irritate you, like when people say something to you, usually have something to do with wounds that are going on in you. And that's where meditation, you have to sit still with yourself, get to know thyself, know that inner child. And you got to bring up those memories, okay? We don't want to avoid the energy and the trauma and the energy and emotions that are being stored in our body. We want to bring it back up. And even if it's painful, we want to go through it. Okay, we got to go through the emotions, and we want to send love back to that inner child. So when I started really becoming self-aware of the blocks and the limiting beliefs that I had in my nervous system and in my mind, I would get memories and I'd be like, okay, I got to pause. And I would visualize just sending love back to that child. I see you, I love you, I forgive you, I release you. And I had to learn to love and forgive that child, and I had to learn to love and forgive other people. So we want to ask what things are going on underneath the surface, and then what pain have you been avoiding sitting with? Because whatever is invisible will become visible, and it will play out in your reality. That's part of the esoteric principles and the laws that govern our world. As above, so below, as within, so without. You want to know somebody's inner view about themselves? Ask them their outer view. Okay? People that don't think that they can have a life that they love usually criticize you for getting the things in life that you do love. Okay, because happy people want to see you happy, successful people want to see you successful, and people that are living lives that they love want to see you live a life that you love, because why, again, would anybody want to willingly suffer unless they're in some spiritual psychosis on thinking that they're going to get a golden ticket to heaven? So what pain have you been avoiding sitting with? And no, this is not about obsessively fixing yourself, because sometimes we can get in that trap too, okay, especially if you're a perfectionist. Oh, I gotta fix myself. If I heal everything, then I'll be enough. No. This is not about fixing yourself and staying in this kind of cocoon state of just shadow self of going through all of this. This is about learning to be aware of yourself, because you are not some broken doll. You are not some broken toy car that's been discarded, because you're already a whole complete person. But awareness is needed to start creating something new. See now that I'm doing a new thing. The Spirit of the Lord brings liberty, which means brings freedom from what you've been in bondage with in your mind. Okay, this stage is about becoming aware. Because most people are not consciously living, they're reacting from old programming. So this is the phrase where you begin asking yourself the difficult questions. Okay, start having those solo dates with yourself, whether it's in the morning over a cup of coffee, whether it's at a lunch break and you're just journaling and actually thinking, whether you're just going on a walk and you're kind of starting to talk to yourself and say, hey, what's going on up here? Okay, why do I feel unworthy? Why do I feel guilty about receiving love? Why do I shrink myself? Why do I fear being seen? Why do I abandon myself for approval? Why do I not feel worthy and deserving to have the things that I want? Why don't I feel like I can live the life that I want? Why do I feel like it's unrealistic? Where are all these coming from? In one exercise I've shared before, and I live by it because it's also the thing that really changed my life. If you want a bullshit-proof way on where you're at with loving yourself, go stand in front of a mirror. Genuinely. Okay, go stand in front of a mirror. That's your homework, okay? Go stand in front of a mirror, look yourself in the eye, place a hand on your heart and say, I love you, and then insert your name. I love you. I approve of you. I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. I see you. I'm thankful for you. And start speaking life. And take note, what's going on up here? Does the ego try to rear its ugly head and say, you don't have to do this. This is so stupid. Like, why you really think this is going to prove this exercise is, you're looking so silly. What if somebody hears you right now and it's going to try to make you feel shame or just uncomfortableness doing that? And you're also going to probably feel those emotions coming up, especially if you have been self-hating or rejecting or abandoning. I know personally for me, the first time I did that, it was hard. It was like pulling teeth for me. And the first time I was like, I love you. And I didn't really believe it. Okay. I had faith as small as a mustard seed. But then every day I kept doing it. I'd be like, I love you. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I love you today. I see you. I know today might have been hard, but I'm so thankful you still showed up and persevered. And before I knew it, within like a month and a half, I had that like deja vu, like aha moment when I said it to myself. I was like, I actually believed it this time. Oh, I actually do love myself. And I felt that emotion just come up because it was like a dam bursting forth of that inner child being like, yeah, you actually love me. Like, you actually love me now. You're not just saying it delusionally to try to put that belief system in your body. Like, you actually believe it. And it was just that humbling moment of like, I do love myself. Like, I do actually see myself as somebody approved of and somebody that is beautiful and somebody that is worthy. And that was powerful for me. And I get it. It might feel uncomfortable. For some people, the aloneness feels uncomfortable, saying it to yourself, receiving that love. But instead of shaming yourself, especially beating yourself up, because I wanted to, when I couldn't do it, I started beating myself up like, this is so stupid. Why can't you just say it already? Don't shame yourself. Seriously, don't. You cannot hate yourself into a version that you love. You can only love yourself into a version that you love. So that's when, again, you need to pause and you say, where is this coming from? And then if you do feel that energy, start to feel what shape it is. Kind of see what color it is and feel it dissolve. And that's also where meditation and journaling and stillness begins. Be still and know that I am God. Because this is where you truly start clearing the canvas of your soul and you start peeling back all of these false labels and masks that you've just been wearing to perform for love. And when you start removing the beliefs and the identities and the fears and the narratives that were never truly yours, now you slowly start coming home to yourself. And when you start slowly coming home to yourself, that is where you enter your in-between phase of becoming. And so the second part of this is truly that in-between of just becoming, knowing that you are already a whole, complete being, okay? Being present, but then also becoming. It's a twofold, okay? You are a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. And that's because that's where you truly are learning to harmonize your mind and body. And that's where the old programming really starts to want to rear up and pull you back into what's familiar, because your brain and body is designed to keep you safe. That's how your nervous system is wired. It's highly intelligent. But this is also where you begin to truly challenge and start walking out, by your faith be it unto you. A man is what his faith is. Both the Bible and the Gita both say that. And this is where you truly do begin unlearning the years of shame and self-hatred and fear and the survival patterns. This is where the tests really start coming up of, are you, okay, you want that, huh? But are you going to actually act in that new identity, or are you going to go back to what's familiar? Because when you say you want something, when you say you want to become somebody new, the tests do show up. Because like the Ouroboros, you will keep repeating the pattern until you learn your lesson. And so every time you want to become a new person and you want to integrate a new experience into your identity, that's the becoming part, you have to do something new. So you have to then start integrating into your nervous system and into your belief system new beliefs and new experiences and emotions that give your mind a new future to believe in. Because the mind can only create, the intellect can only create from things of the past. If you're living of the tribe of Ephraim and not the tribe of Judah, Okay, symbolism in the Bible. You are going to be creating from the intellect. In the intellect, the fear can only create from things that have been created before. Okay, so if you have, let's say, vanilla cake mix, you can make a cake, you can make cupcakes, you can make muffins, you can make cake pops, but they're all going to be vanilla. But if you want a chocolate cake, you got to add new ingredients in. So if you're somebody who is only dressed a certain way, if you're somebody who's only acted a certain way or only talked to yourself a certain way, for me, I was super negative. I was complaining about everything. I was like, I hate my life. I hate my job. I hate all this. I had to learn to start integrating gratitude. And I had to learn to start shutting up and stop complaining about stuff. And because I also had to start catching myself, because when I started actually becoming silent and just observing and actually not complaining, I would notice that my coworkers, they would complain about their lives. And I wanted to complain in my head about them complaining because I'm like, I'm so sick of this bullshit. Shut up already. But I'd be like, no, you know what? Thank you for a job. And I would go find something else to do with my time because misery loves company, and I did not want to be a part of that. I did not want to be a part of that company because I did not want to become that again. I wanted a new experience for myself, so I had to learn to integrate new habits, new experiences, new activities. I had to learn to start changing my state of being, that becoming process. And this is also where you begin to realize how much of your identity was truly built around protection instead of authenticity. How your body and how your mind learned to survive by creating beliefs that then protected that little sacred parts of you that got hurt when you were a child. And this is also where you have to learn to live differently. This is the phase where you start to forgive yourself, you start to forgive others, you stop punishing yourself for being human, you learn grace and that it's an ever-present companion, you learn emotional regulation, you learn presence, and you learn balance. You learn to become the rock on which the waters break upon. Okay, instead of you being the one that's tossing and turning in the waves of the sea, you are calling them to be still. You are learning to not react anymore to life, but let life come from you. Because you realize you always can't control these outside circumstances. There will be events in your life that are just completely out of your control. Things that just in your mind you want to be like, that was the worst thing that happened to me. But you have to pause and realize, no, how do I want to define this moment and how do I want to react to this moment? Do I want to freak out and spiral, or do I want to say, you know what? The only thing I can control is myself, is my chariot, my mind and body. So I get to choose how I'm going to react. And as soon as you react also to other people, okay? For example, I get mean comments on my fucking YouTube pages. I get people being like, well, that's materialistic of you. Well, great, Susan. I don't care. Because if I allow them to hurt me, if I give them the power and I react to that, that's saying that they have power over me. And I don't want anybody to have power over me because I want to be the master of my house. So I'm in control of my emotions. I'm in control of my mindset. I'm in control of me. Okay, and that's your journey. That's from being to now becoming. Who do you want to be? And this is also where sometimes people refer to that as the dark night of the soul, because you start going through an egoic death. Everything you once believed starts crumbling around you. It's very painful. As Jesus said, the end of the world comes. That's also where you start going into the wilderness, this confusion of, okay, I no longer believe what I used to believe, but I don't know what the fuck to believe anymore. What is truth? And you kind of start like, oh, everything is, all this is a lie. And you feel like you woke up from a Truman Show. You know, like in the movie Divergent, she taps on the glass and it shatters because she's like, this isn't real. And that's kind of what happens, especially when you wake up to consciousness and you start seeing all of these different things. And you can get into almost paranoia if you don't ground yourself. And that is why you have to pick up your cross, okay? You were never meant to abandon your humanity. Divinity's great, spirituality's great, but you also were meant to be human. You were meant to feel things. You were meant to live and enjoy your life. Look at the monks. They laugh and play like a child in the river. Have faith like a child. Okay, so you need to ground yourself at times, because this is also the phase where people start getting really up in their heads, especially if you're somebody who likes to learn a lot and you're somebody who likes to push the limits, and if you have air signs in your astrology chart and all the other different terminologies. Okay, you get up really in your head and you're constantly trying to fix things and pick apart and fuck around until you find out, but you do need to ground yourself, or else you'll start getting sick and you'll start hemorrhaging energy and your body will feel dead. And so ways that you can ground yourself is visualize your energy coming back into your body and visualizing it going down to the soles of your feet, and from your knees down, just picturing your legs as cement. Getting out in nature, laying on your floor. A lot of times I had to meditate laying on my floor. When I was like really going through, like working through my trauma and whatnot, I would just end up going paralyzed because I'd push my nervous system and body too far, and it would literally shut down on me because I was too much up in my head. My brain was going way too much, and I had to learn to start slowing it down and regulating. That's also where meditation comes in, especially if you have the ADHD. Okay, so you need to learn to actually just be present And it's a process of learning to love yourself without conditions. And anytime a condition comes up, you say, hey, da-da-da. No, love is unconditional. If it has terms and conditions, it is not love. It's social acceptance, okay? That's why if a deity who just loves you so much is going to send you to hell if you don't do a whole list of X, Y, Z, that's a false idol. You need to run from that, okay? So you need to learn to love yourself without conditions, and you need to have grace with yourself. And then when emotions do come up, because this is also the process, again, you get past that first hump of like, oh, you know what, I've gotten through with this. So instead of getting caught up on the fixing, perfectionist, healing phase, I just got to keep, once I get a little bit more self-help, once I heal just a little bit more, then I'll be ready. No, okay, you are already a whole, complete person. And now it's a journey of becoming. Now you're going to keep taking steps forward, and then as things come up from your shoe, you got a rock in your shoe, you've got all these rocks in your backpack that you're carrying. When the rock comes up and it starts poking at your soul and you're like, oh, get it out. Pause. When that emotion comes up, or that memory that comes up to the surface that you forgot about your childhood because you suppressed it and you dissociated from it. Pause, feel it, send love, release. I see you, I love you, I forgive you. When somebody comes up from your past and you like, oh, I don't like that person, they irritated me, pause. Say, you know what? You were there to refine me. I see you, I love you, I forgive you, and send that person love. It's the process of becoming, not when you're perfect, not when you've healed enough, not when you've achieved enough. That means you're still striving. That means you're still operating out of a place of lack if you're trying to strive to be good enough rather than accepting yourself as already enough now. And that's what changes everything, because healing isn't becoming somebody new. Healing is removing everything that convinced you that you were unlovable to begin with. And this is also the stage where you, again, start making practical changes. You start changing your habits, your environment. Maybe for you, it's getting a new t-shirt, and it's learning to let go of some of the stuff. Maybe you have underwear that's like 5 years old in your underwear drawer that you're like, you know what? I need to take care of my temple and love me a little bit better. I'm going to go get a new pack of underwear. Everybody has their own thing, okay? But this is this. It's where you start changing relationships and routines, speaking differently to yourself, and protecting your peace. Now, I am not saying protecting your peace in the way that we've kind of got going on in the whole world of the new age shit of like, oh, I'm just going to protect my peace. I don't want to hear it. And it's a lack of accountability. Because to actually heal and become somebody that you want, to actually know thyself, you have to take accountability, because your mental health might not be your fault, but it is 100% your responsibility on if you're going to just keep blaming and being a victim, and nobody likes blamers and victims, or if you're going to actually take accountability and heal so that way you can be the victor of your life. So when I mean protecting your peace, I mean having healthy boundaries of learning not to overgive and overextend and people please and all of those other patterns that play out. And then comes the third part of knowing thyself, which is the fun part, creation, okay? Because you are a co-creator. And eventually knowing thyself is asking the questions, what do I want to create with my life? What do I want out of life? What beauty do I want to bring into the world? What impact do I want to leave behind? How do I want to love people? How do I want to make heaven on earth? And this is where people sometimes get uncomfortable, especially in society and especially with certain aspects of religion that teach people spirituality means shrinking, that holiness means lack, that wanting more somehow makes you bad. But let me tell you something, poverty never helped anybody, okay? I don't know if you know this, but when a plane's going down, you're supposed to put on your mask first before you put on your neighbor's, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. You love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't have love for yourself, you're not truly loving your neighbor. And you wonder why so many people only have conditional acceptance for other people, because they only have conditional acceptance for themselves. But that's not what we were taught. The Jesus in the Bible, this archetype character whose name is actually Yeshua, either way, that's a different one for a different time. The Jesus we see in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he embodied his humanity to the fullest. He loved himself so unconditionally. He loved every single person around him, and he was able to meet them in that moment. He didn't see people that need to fix and change and, oh, you got to do this to be accepted and loved by God. No, he reminded them of their identity, and he restored them back into that. By your faith, then you have been healed. He reminded them of their purpose, of who they truly are. And then he also embodied his divinity to the fullest. And then he said, go and do greater things than I. Playing small never changed the world. And wasting your gifts does not honor the creator who gave them to you. And there's even a passage in the New Testament that says, if your child asks for bread, would you give him a snake, you wicked parents? So how much greater would the gifts from Father up above be given unto you, who's a good father? And when you understand the Kabbalah teachings, they teach that God just wants to give and give and give. Life just wants to give all of these good gifts. And we wanted to be like God, so we gave back, and that's when the basin broke. So the only one holding you back from the gifts that you want, from the things that you want, is you. And I know that's a hard thing to swallow, that you're the one that has limiting beliefs in your mind that are stopping you from getting what you want. And so when I ask people, so what do you want out of life? It makes them uncomfortable because a lot of people weren't asked. A lot of people have never been told that they can actually have the things that they want out of life. They've been told, guess what? Life doesn't work like that. Nope, money doesn't grow on trees. Sorry, you get to suffer. No. Actually, you want to know what the Bible says? Let's see what the Bible has to say about this, because this is some good scriptures here. If you have your Bibles, feel free to turn to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 2, verse 26. Okay, I want you to listen to this, okay? For God giveth to a man that is good. Other variations say to the righteous, okay? But to the man that is good in his sight, he gives wisdom and knowledge and joy. Those are the three things that a righteous person gets. But to the sinner, he giveth travail. You want to know what travail means? Travail, painfully difficult work, exertion, suffering, often characterized by immense mental or physical effort and agony. So the sinner, he gives suffering, okay? To gather and heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. So, to the sinner, to the one who is out of alignment with source, out of alignment, which that is their true nature, out of alignment, which why they came down here to live and create, okay? Because if you're in alignment with who you truly are, if you knew me, you know the Father, you would actually probably have wisdom, knowledge, and joy. You would probably actually understand these esoteric teachings, and you would understand how then to apply them to your life, because there are laws that govern our world, and they're either being used for your greater good or they're being used for somebody else's. And again, I like to fuck around and find out, and I actually like to apply them to my life to get what I want out of life. And sometimes that is material things because, again, we were not created here to suffer. Now, do I put my identity in those things? No, ma'am. Okay? I do not see myself as valuable because I own vintage Prada. I do not see myself as valuable because I own a house. I do not see myself as valuable because I have thousands of YouTube subscribers. I could lose all of that today and say, you know what? I'm okay. Because I have learned to be content in all circumstances. I have learned to be content and at peace in myself, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, governs my heart and governs my soul. But that is part of the joys of creating a life that you love, is asking yourself, what do I want out of this life? What do I want to create out of this life? What do I want to experience out of this life? How do I want to show up in my daily life? But if you're out of alignment, if you're a sinner, as so many like to declare themselves as because of religion, again, vanity and vexation. Vanity says excessive pride in one's own appearance, achievements, and abilities, often companioned by a desire for admiration. You are seeking approval. You are performing for love rather than living from love. Okay? And that's why it feels like, I just can't reach it. Hustle culture. You see it in our culture. Hustle culture is a thing because people are striving and they're trying to chase life rather than realizing life comes from them. And they haven't learned to be content in all circumstances. They haven't learned to be content in themselves, to be rooted in this house of the Lord. Because when you are content, you realize everything I have is a gift from life itself. And if I lost it today, I'd be okay. And that's also where you then get vexation, which is the state of being frustrated, annoyed, or worried, or something that causes such feelings. It refers to both the feeling of irritation and the source of annoyance itself. So you're irritated, you're frustrated with life. How many people are living their lives frustrated because they're also identifying as a sinner? Because the Bible also says, if you want to flip to 1 John, it says, we know that whoever is born of God sinneth not. When that second coming of Christ comes within you and you realize you're not separate from source, and you actually become aware of that the kingdom of God is within you, seek first the kingdom. And when you pray, Father that art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. When you actually realize that's talking about stuff going on inside of you, and you actually align back to source, and you stop missing the mark, you go and sin no more. As Genesis says, sin lieth at the door. You're not born a sinner. That is 4th century Augustine of Hippo's theology. And because people have been indoctrinated with that, they're believing a lie about who they are. They're believing false identities about themselves. And we wonder why the world's so fucked up. We wonder why so many people are miserable because they've been taught that suffering is holiness. The more I suffer for Jesus, the more he sees me as a worthy Christian. No. But if you don't want to keep suffering with your life, then maybe, just maybe, you need to get some wisdom. You need to get some knowledge. You need to understand that the joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord becomes your strength every single day because you've learned to give thanks in all circumstances, because this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Because we knoweth whoever is born of God sinneth not. So you're no longer a sinner if you are conscious and you are aware, because that means you're no longer missing the mark. You're no longer out of alignment with who you actually are. You've actually learned to re-love and reconnect with yourself and see your gifts as something to use rather than something to hate and shame about. I don't know where we've got this idea that our gifts and our desires are evil and wicked. Oh yeah, I remember religion. Because religion likes to say, oh, the heart's wicked above all else. You better not pursue those things. Oh, that's pretty vain and selfish of you. Oh, that's arrogant and prideful. You need to humble yourself. No. The heart. These false beliefs and lies are wicked because they are leading you astray and they're stealing and killing, destroying the future that you want to create. But when you actually command this chair and you actually know what's going on, and then you have the courage because you love yourself to then create a life that you love, now you're able to lift up other people because you're strengthened. Let the weak say that they are strong, because that's what encouragement is. When you have courage, be strong and courageous, for I, the Lord, will never forsake you and never leave you. When you are strong and courageous, you are then able to encourage other people. You are able to pour in courage into their lives, and you are able to pull out the fear from their lives. You're able to give them a different future. You're able to say, hey, I know where you are right now currently sucks, but let me tell you, you've got a future worth living for. You've got a future worth creating. You can create a life that you love. You can create a life that you want to live. And then with that, you can raise up other people into that future. You can give them hope. You can give them a future worth believing in, that just gold strand that keeps them going. Because the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Paul says to test all things and see what is good. Test and see that the Lord is good. You're supposed to be testing these principles. You're supposed to be applying them to your life, and you're supposed to be creating a life that you want to live. Because that is what gets you good and well done, faithful servant. And if you can be trusted with a little, you can be trusted with a lot. And if you can't even use your own fucking brain, you can't even learn to apply what you've been given, these gifts. Why? Why would life ever apply and give you a lot of money? Why would life give you more if you ain't even using it? Okay, we see that. The one servant got 10 talents, the one got 5, and the one got 1. Now that's not talking about money. That's talking about gifts and abilities. And the one that went and invested it and started practicing it, become a master of your craft. As Proverbs says, you go and stand before kings. Okay, you actually learn and you get that recognition because you put in the time and effort and you've been a good steward of the gifts you've been given. And so the one that invested, he said, good job. And then the one that invested, he said, good job. And then the one that just decided to bury it and suppress it, because, I didn't want to lose it. I'm fearful of looking like a failure. Yeah, wicked servant, get out of here. I'm going to take it and give it to the one that has a lot, because that's what Ecclesiastes says. The righteous get wisdom, knowledge, and joy to create a life that they want to live. And the unrighteous get to heap and toil and sorrow and suffering to get all that money and get all that work, to work a 9-to-5 for big pharma and big corporate, to then give to the one that learned how to apply these esoteric principles to their lives. So you need to get to know yourself, because whether you think you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. And the only one holding you back from the life that you want and the gifts and the things that you want out of life and from these desires and these dreams that you have is you. But why would you be given a dream and told not to pursue it? Why would life torture you with that dream? And why would you torture yourself by constantly suffocating it and not letting it breathe? You need to see that vision and grab it and take hold of it and run with it. Run with that vision and make it a reality. You need to embody it and walk it out, because by your faith be it unto you. So know thyself. Not to become obsessed with thyself and get very egotistical in the brain. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you need to stop abandoning thyself, and you need to get to know yourself, and you need to become your best friend. Become your best friend that's showing up every single day with you. Become the person that's cheering you on step by step, and that isn't shaming themselves when they accidentally mess up, but rather who loves themselves every step of the way, because beneath all the noise, all the conditioning, all the fear, and all the masks, there is a soul that is waiting to fully live. There is a soul that is just waiting patiently to burst forth with life because you decided to pour love into it. And maybe the greatest act of love you will ever experience is becoming who you were meant to be before the world told you who to be. And that is exactly what my book, You Are Art, talks about. It comes out May 18th, this Monday. Mark your calendars. Reclaiming your identity as a divine masterpiece. And we go through this 3-step process of identities and belief systems, of the becoming, and ultimately also the creating, and understanding the power of our words and the power of our vision to dream and create again. So if that interests you, again, mark your calendars. This Monday, May 18th, my book, You Are Art, is coming out. Thank you so much.